February 28. 4 a.m. Tehran time. Hundreds of missiles and stealth bombers hit Iran simultaneously. Command centers, nuclear sites, military bases, oil refineries, and the private office of the supreme leader himself. By dawn, Ayatollah Khamenei was dead. Iran's air defense grid was gone. The Persian Gulf was on fire. The White House called it Operation Epic Fury. The rest of the world called it what it was: the most consequential military strike since Iraq 2003. And just like Iraq 2003, every reason they gave you for doing it was a lie. This war was designed, lobbied for, and delivered, not from Washington, but from Tel Aviv. And Donald Trump. He was the last domino to fall. Let's break it down. No sentiment. Pure power. In 2001, a U.S. general was handed a memo from the Secretary of Defense's office. It described, in cold bureaucratic language, a plan to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, finishing with Iran.
Still going to war with Iraq, and he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq, and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
That was 25 years ago. Every single country on that list has since been attacked by the United States. Iran was always the end game, the final boss, the one they were saving. The question was never if. It was always when, and more importantly, who pulls the trigger, and for whose benefit. Fast forward to February 28 of this year. The US and Israel launch coordinated decapitation strikes. Ayatollah Khamenei is killed. Operation Epic Fury goes live. And somehow, we're supposed to believe this was Donald Trump's original idea. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. The 3 excuses, dismantled. The Trump administration gave 3 public justifications for this war. Let's run through them fast, because they collapse under the slightest scrutiny. The excuse number 1, the missile threat. Trump said Iran was developing missiles capable of hitting US troops, European targets, maybe even the American homeland itself. Here's what the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency's own 2025 report said. As of last year, Iran had no missiles capable of striking the United States, and they were a decade away from producing even 60 of them. Not imminent, not even close. And then Secretary of State Marco Rubio, accidentally, told the truth. He admitted the war started because Israel said it was going to strike Iran first, and the U.S. was worried about the Iranian response to that. He tried to walk it back too late. The slip already happened. There was no Iranian preemptive strike coming. The missile threat was a pretext. The excuse 2, the nuclear threat. This one's almost impressive in its audacity. Trump's own chief negotiator claimed Iran was a week away from bomb-making material, but the head of the UN's nuclear inspectors said, on the record, there was not going to be a bomb tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. The U.S.'s own intelligence has said consistently, Iran stopped actively pursuing nuclear weapons back in 2003. That's not my number. That's their number. And here's the kicker. While the U.S. was publicly screaming about nukes, they were privately negotiating a deal with Iran. A deal that experts say was even better for the U.S. than the original Obama-era JCPOA. Iran was reportedly willing to make major concessions. Trump chose war over a victory lap. Why does a man turn down a winning deal? Because the deal was never the point. The excuse number 3. Liberating the Iranian people. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. That's Trump. Sounds noble. You know what also sounds noble? Every other regime change operation in American history, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Venezuela, you know what they all have in common: no plan for the day after. 0. The Trump administration's own people admitted they had specific Iranians in mind for post-regime leadership, and then revealed almost casually that those same people had been killed in the strikes. That's not a liberation plan, that's an improvisation. And just like in Gaza, where years of devastating airstrikes failed to remove Hamas, the idea that bombing from altitude removes a regime that has spent 50 years embedding itself into every layer of Iranian society is fantasy. The excuses are dead. So what's the real game? The puppet and the puppeteer. Let's talk about Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a man who has spent his entire political career, 40 years, arguing that Iran represents an existential threat to Israel, and that the only solution is military force. For 40 years, nobody handed him the keys. Then came Trump's second term. Netanyahu visited the White House on February 11th, just weeks before the strikes. The specific agenda: Iran, nuclear weapons, and convincing Trump to abandon the diplomatic track entirely. He succeeded. Netanyahu himself said, and I'm quoting directly here, "This coalition of forces allows us to do what I have yearned to do for 40 years. 40 years. His words. This was not American foreign policy driving Israeli interests. This was Israeli foreign policy driving American military power. And why now? 2 reasons. First, Iran was weak. Their axis of resistance, Hezbollah, Hamas, their proxy network across the region, had been decimated in the years prior. The Iranian strategic shield was paper-thin. Second, and this is the critical one, they had Trump, a president who, after his first term, had become convinced that when everyone told him something was impossible and he did it anyway, and it didn't immediately blow up, that meant he was right. He killed Qasem Soleimani in 2020. Everyone said it would trigger a major war. It didn't, at least not immediately. Trump concluded, "My instincts are infallible." Netanyahu fed that ego. He called this a 21st century Berlin Wall moment. He compared Trump and himself to Churchill and Roosevelt. And Trump, who desperately wants a legacy that eclipses Reagan, ate it whole. What Israel actually wants. Now, here's where Realpolitik gets cold. Israel does not want a democratic, stable, prosperous Iran. Think about it strategically. A strong Iran, even a reformed one, remains a regional competitor. A wealthy, internationally integrated Iran with 200 years of Persian civilization behind it is a geopolitical rival that constrains Israeli regional dominance. What Israel wants is a fragmented, weak Iran, internally divided, economically crippled, incapable of projecting power or funding resistance movements. Chaos next door serves Israel better than democracy next door. And while this war rages, what's happening on the ground? Lebanon is being hit. The West Bank is being squeezed. 6 Palestinians killed by settlers in the first weeks alone. The war on Iran is also, functionally, cover for Israel's continued operations in Gaza and beyond. When the entire world is watching Tehran burn, who's watching Rafah? The US is providing not just military hardware, but strategic distraction at a planetary scale. That is what Israel purchased with 40 years of lobbying, intelligence sharing, congressional relationships, and one very well-timed February visit to the White House, Trump's personal calculus. Let's be precise about what Trump gets out of this. His domestic numbers are underwater. 60% disapproval in some polls. Midterms are approaching. His base is furious about everything from the Epstein files to economic pain from his own tariff wars. And Trump has figured out something his predecessors haven't fully weaponized. War resets the news cycle. War makes presidents look decisive. War is the ultimate distraction. He's bypassed Congress on tariffs, immigration, and now war itself. He's turned Congress into the lame duck, not the other way around. And if this works, if the regime in Tehran collapses, if he can claim credit for ending a 40-year standoff, he doesn't just beat his midterm problem. He cements his place in history. That's the bet. Iran is a legacy crown, a geopolitical trophy. It's the most dangerous kind of foreign policy there is. One driven by a president's personal narrative arc more than any strategic doctrine. The cost and the chaos. Here's what that vanity project is costing in real terms. Over 1,000 Iranian civilians dead in weeks. The single deadliest strike of this war, a girls' school in Manab. 165 people killed, the majority of them girls aged 7 to 12. No one has taken responsibility. The bombing of Iranian oil facilities has created toxic plumes, chemicals known to cause carcinogenic lung damage raining down on civilian populations. Iranian drone and missile strikes are hitting civilian targets across the Gulf, Cyprus, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was struck. Gulf states that have hosted American military bases for decades, sold on the promise of U.S. protection, are now realizing those bases made them targets, not safe havens. Every GCC state is furious. And the people with the least power in all of this, the Iranian civilians caught between a regime tightening its grip and foreign bombs falling from the sky. Experts are already saying, Iran's path to genuine political freedom has been set back at least 2 decades by this war. Not liberated, destroyed. Set back. Traumatized. That is what this liberation looks like on the ground. So let's be clear about what happened here. Netanyahu spent 40 years building the case, the relationships, and the strategic moment to drag American military power into a war that serves Israeli regional hegemony above all else. Trump, motivated by ego, legacy hunger, and the seductive logic of a man who's never been held accountable, gave him the green light. The American people got no vote. The Iranian people got no say. Congress was bypassed, the UN was ignored, international law was shredded, and at the end of it, the country that had the clearest strategic objective going in, Israel, is the country most likely to get what it wanted coming out. That's not conspiracy. That's not sentiment. That is realpolitik. The weak pay, the powerful profit, and the story we're told is always, a different one entirely. Stay skeptical.